Welcome to LingExam Language Academy's tutorial podcast. We're so glad you've joined us today. At LingExam Language Academy, we're dedicated to helping English learners like you achieve your language goals, whether you're preparing for an important exam or simply looking to improve your communication skills. Today, we're going to explore everything you need to know about IELTS Speaking Part 1, and we'll make sure you understand it clearly and completely. So, get comfortable and let's begin this learning journey together. Let's start by understanding what the IELTS Speaking Test actually is. The IELTS Speaking Test is one of the 4 main parts of the International English Language Testing System exam. The other 3 parts are listening, reading, and writing. The speaking test is designed to check how well you can speak English in a real conversation. You'll sit down face to face with a certified examiner who will ask you questions and listen carefully to your answers. This test is the same whether you're taking the academic version or the general training version of IELTS. The entire speaking test takes between 11 and 14 minutes, and everything you say is recorded so it can be assessed properly. The interview format gives you a chance to show your fluency, your grammar, your pronunciation, and how well you can organize your thoughts when you're speaking in real time. The IELTS speaking section has 3 different parts, and each part focuses on different types of questions and different ways of interacting with the examiner. Understanding the structure is really important because it helps you prepare effectively and feel more confident on test day. Let's look at what happens in each of these 3 parts. Part 1 is called Introduction and Interview, and it lasts about 4 to 5 minutes. When you walk into the exam room, the examiner will greet you and ask to see your identification. Then there's a brief introduction and a warm-up conversation. After that, the examiner will ask you a series of general questions about familiar topics. These topics might include your hometown, your family, your work or studies, your hobbies and interests, your daily routine, travel experiences, or your food preferences. This section is designed to help you feel comfortable and to let you speak naturally about yourself and your life. The examiner will usually ask between 8 and 12 questions during this part. The goal here is to see how well you can use simple and clear language to talk about everyday situations. For example, you might be asked questions like, "What kind of food do you like?" Or, "Do you enjoy your work or studies?" Or, "What do you usually do on weekends?" The purpose of Part 1 is to assess your ability to communicate basic information clearly and fluently. The examiner wants to see your grammatical range and accuracy when discussing common topics, and they want to examine your natural speech patterns in an informal conversation. Now let's move on to Part 2, which is called the long turn. This part lasts 3 to 4 minutes in total. In Part 2, you'll be given a task card with a topic written on it, along with 4 guiding bullet points. You'll have exactly 1 minute to prepare, and you're allowed to make brief notes during this preparation time. After the minute is up, you must speak for 1 to 2 minutes on the topic without any interruption from the examiner. Let me give you an example of what a typical prompt looks like. You might see something like this. Describe a book you recently read. You should say what the book is about, when you read it, why you chose it, and explain why you liked or disliked it. After you finish your monologue, the examiner may ask you 1 or 2 short follow-up questions related to the topic. The purpose of Part 2 is to evaluate your ability to organize extended speech on a single topic. The examiner wants to assess how you use linking devices, topic-related vocabulary, and coherent storytelling. They're also testing your fluency and pronunciation without the interactive support from the examiner that you had in Part 1. This part is often called the individual long turn because it mimics real-life situations where you need to express a complete idea or tell a story without back-and-forth interaction. Part 3 is the final section, and it's called the discussion. This part also lasts about 4 to 5 minutes. In this section, the examiner and you will have a two-way discussion that's related to the topic you talked about in Part 2. However, the questions in Part 3 are more abstract and complex. They require you to analyze situations, compare different ideas, or give your opinions about societal issues or hypothetical scenarios. For example, if you talked about a book in Part 2, the examiner might ask you questions like, how important is reading for personal development? Or, do you think digital books will replace printed books? Or, what are the differences between reading fiction and non-fiction? The purpose of Part 3 is to measure your ability to defend ideas, present arguments, and justify your opinions. The examiner wants to evaluate how well you can handle abstract ideas, speculative questions, and complex grammatical structures. They're testing both the depth and flexibility of your spoken English. This section gives the examiner a deeper understanding of your ability to engage in academic-style discussions, use advanced vocabulary, and structure your responses with clarity. Let's summarize the key points about the IELTS Speaking Test. The test lasts 11 to 14 minutes and is interview-based. It consists of 3 parts, each with a different focus. Part 1 involves personal questions on familiar topics. Part 2 requires you to give a short speech based on a prompt. Part 3 is a more complex discussion on related issues. The test is evaluated using 4 scoring criteria: fluency and coherence, lexical resource, which means vocabulary use, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Each of these criteria accounts for 25% of your total speaking score. Why is it so important to understand the speaking test structure? Understanding the structure helps you prepare more effectively by targeting each part individually. It builds your confidence because you know exactly what to expect. It allows you to practice relevant strategies such as expanding your answers, organizing your ideas, and maintaining fluency. And it improves your performance by helping you align with the band descriptors that examiners use to score you. Many students make the mistake of treating the speaking test as just a casual conversation. However, knowing the format and purpose of each part allows for targeted practice, higher speaking bands, and better time management during the test. So, how should you prepare for IELTS speaking? There are several effective preparation strategies. First, practice speaking about common topics every day. Second, record your answers and listen back to check for pronunciation and grammar mistakes. Third, use sample questions for Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3 inches your practice sessions. Fourth, practice with a speaking partner or tutor whenever possible. Fifth, expand your vocabulary by creating topic-specific word lists. And sixth, try shadowing native speakers to mimic their rhythm and intonation. By starting with a strong understanding of the speaking test's structure, you lay the foundation for targeted preparation. Now let's focus specifically on Part 1 and understand its role in the overall test. How does IELTS Speaking Part 1 affect your overall score? Part 1 plays a crucial role in your total speaking band score. Although it may seem simple and informal, this section gives examiners their first impression of your English proficiency and directly impacts how you're assessed across the 4 official scoring criteria. Many test takers underestimate Part 1 because the questions are general and personal. However, this is actually a key opportunity to show off your fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation in a comfortable setting. Understanding how you're scored and what the examiner is looking for in Part 1 will help you maximize your performance from the very beginning of the interview. Let's talk about the IELTS Speaking Band descriptors. The IELTS Speaking Test is evaluated using 4 equally weighted criteria. These are fluency and coherence, lexical resource, grammatical range and accuracy, and pronunciation. Each criterion contributes 25% to your final speaking band score, and each one is tested from the very first question in Part 1. Let's start with fluency and coherence. This criterion measures how smoothly and clearly you speak. Fluency refers to your ability to speak continuously without unnatural pauses or too much hesitation. Coherence is your ability to organize ideas logically and connect your sentences smoothly. In Part 1, the examiner expects you to speak naturally and without long pauses. You should avoid repeating the same words and phrases. You should also use connecting words and discourse markers such as well, actually, or to be honest, or in my opinion. Common mistakes include giving short, one-word answers, stopping frequently to search for vocabulary, and lacking organization in longer responses. How can you improve your fluency in Part 1? Practice responding to common questions for 10 to 15 seconds at a time. Use transition phrases to structure your answers. And avoid memorized answers because you need to speak spontaneously. Let me give you an example of a fluent answer. If the examiner asks, "What do you usually do in your free time?" a good response would be, "Well, in my free time, I usually like reading novels or listening to podcasts. It helps me relax and also improve my English at the same time." This response is smooth, well organized, and uses connectors naturally. Next, let's discuss lexical resource, which is all about vocabulary. This criterion measures how wide and accurate your vocabulary is. In IELTS Speaking Part 1, you should use topic-specific words. For example, words like commute, neighborhood, or leisure activities. You should avoid overusing basic words like nice, good, or bad. You should also show the ability to paraphrase, which means using different words to express the same idea. For instance, you could use exhausted instead of very tired. Common mistakes include repeating the same vocabulary in each answer, using words in the wrong context, and relying only on simple, everyday expressions. How can you improve your vocabulary? Build themed vocabulary lists for topics like food, travel, and education. Learn common collocations, which are words that naturally go together, such as make an effort or spend time, and practice explaining words when you forget them. Here's an example of strong lexical resource. If the examiner asks, "Do you live in a house or an apartment?" you could say, "I live in a small apartment on the 3rd floor of a building." It's quite cozy and has a beautiful view of the city skyline. Here, the speaker uses words like cozy and skyline to show descriptive vocabulary related to the topic. Now let's talk about grammatical range and accuracy. This criterion evaluates both your variety of grammatical structures and how accurately you use them. In Part 1, you're expected to use appropriate tenses, such as present simple, present continuous, and past simple. You need to form correct sentence structures, and you should use basic complex sentences with connectors like because, although, or when. Common mistakes include always using only the present simple tense, making frequent errors with subject-verb agreement or article use, and avoiding complex structures because of lack of confidence. How can you improve your grammar? Practice answering questions using different tenses. Focus on common grammatical patterns in spoken English. And record and analyze your answers for errors. Let me give you an example of accurate grammar use. If the examiner asks, "Do you work or are you a student?" you could respond, "I'm currently a student at university, studying business management. I've been in the program for about 2 years now, and I really enjoy it." This example uses present continuous, present simple, and present perfect accurately. The fourth criterion is pronunciation. Pronunciation doesn't mean having a perfect accent. Instead, it's about being understandable and using correct stress, intonation, and rhythm. In Part 1, examiners look for clear word pronunciation, proper sentence stress to highlight key ideas, and intonation patterns that reflect natural speech. For example, your voice should rise at the end of questions. Common mistakes include speaking in a monotone, mispronouncing common words, and ignoring word and sentence stress, which makes speech sound robotic. How can you improve your pronunciation? Listen to and mimic native speakers using shadowing techniques. Practice reading aloud with focus on intonation. And use apps or tools that analyze your pronunciation and pitch. Here's an example of good pronunciation. If the examiner asks, "What kind of music do you like?" you could say, "I really enjoy acoustic music, especially guitar-based songs. They have a calming effect and help me focus when I study." In this response, sentence stress is on meaningful words like acoustic music and calming effect, which helps the listener follow the idea easily. It's important to understand how Part 1 responses are scored in real time. The examiner begins scoring you immediately in Part 1. While your performance in all 3 parts is considered for the final score, Part 1 sets the tone for how fluently and naturally you can respond to general questions. In some cases, candidates start strong in Part 1 but struggle in the later parts. In other cases, a weak beginning limits their potential because examiners notice problems early, such as limited vocabulary, frequent hesitations, or repetitive grammar. Part 1 matters because it offers the first full sample of your speaking ability. It helps examiners evaluate how you perform under low-pressure, familiar topic conditions, and it gives you a chance to gain momentum and show confidence. So, how can you maximize your band score in Speaking Part 1? Here are some expert strategies. First, practice speaking about familiar topics without notes or scripts. Second, use a timer to train yourself to answer questions for 15 to 20 seconds. Third, record yourself and check your answers against each band descriptor. Fourth, use varied vocabulary and grammar, even for simple questions. Fifth, don't memorize answers because they sound unnatural and can actually lower your score. And sixth, build confidence through regular mock interviews and feedback. Let me emphasize why Part 1 is more important than it seems. IELTS Speaking Part 1 might appear casual, but it has a significant impact on your overall speaking score. It allows you to showcase your fluency, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation right from the beginning. By understanding the 4 band descriptors and tailoring your preparation to each one, you can turn this short, conversational part of the test into a high-scoring opportunity. Start strong in Part 1 and you'll set yourself up for success in the rest of the speaking test. Congratulations! You've just completed this comprehensive tutorial on IELTS Speaking Part 1. You should feel proud of yourself for taking the time to learn and understand these important concepts. Learning about the test structure and scoring criteria is a huge step forward in your preparation journey. Now, let's talk about how you can review and reinforce what you've learned today. Here's a step-by-step review strategy that will help you remember and apply everything we've discussed. Step 1. Listen to this podcast again, but this time take notes on the key points. Write down the 4 band descriptors and what each one means. Step 2. Create a study schedule where you practice each criterion separately. For example, dedicate one day to working on fluency, another day to vocabulary, another to grammar, and another to pronunciation. Step 3. Find a list of common IELTS speaking. Part 1 questions online and practice answering them out loud. Record yourself and listen back critically. Step 4. Identify your weakest area among the 4 criteria and focus extra attention on improving it. If your vocabulary is limited, start building topic-based word lists. If your grammar needs work, review basic tenses and practice using them in your answers. Step 5. Practice with a partner, a tutor, or even by yourself in front of a mirror. The more you practice speaking, the more natural and confident you'll become. Step 6. Review the example answers we provided in this podcast and try to create similar responses for different questions. Pay attention to how ideas are connected and how vocabulary is used naturally. We encourage you to visit the LingExam Language Academy website to continue your learning journey. Our website, lingexam.com, is designed to help you improve your English knowledge and skills in a structured and effective way. Whether you're preparing for IELTS or simply want to become a more confident English speaker, we have resources and courses that can support you every step of the way. If you want to study IELTS Speaking Part 1 much deeper and guarantee your high band score, we invite you to visit and study with our dedicated course called Mastering IELTS Speaking Part 1. The best part is that this course is completely free. You'll get access to detailed lessons, practice questions, sample answers, and expert tips that will take your speaking skills to the next level. Visit lingexam.com today and start your journey toward IELTS success. Thank you so much for listening, and we wish you all the best in your English learning and exam preparation. You can do this.